911 turbos have always quietly sat at the top of the range of the 911 lineup. For this reason, I call it the gentleman's 911. I'm Nima from MVL Leasing, and this is a 2022 911 Turbo S. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified anytime we release a new video. So this is a 2022 911 Turbo S Coupe. This car was released in 2021 and looked relatively the same until 2024. It's the 992.1 generation Turbo S. Get some numbers out of the way: 3.8 liter twin turbo flat six, 641 horsepower and 590 foot-pounds of torque. For a car this size to have that type of power makes this thing an absolute bullet, and it embarrasses a lot of the sports cars that we know today, like Lamborghinis and Aston Martins and things of that nature. The car has a lot of cachet and it's got a lot of history, and it always adheres to very strict principles when it comes to what a 911 should be. And a 911 Turbo, which has been around since about the mid-70s, has always kind of been the top dog when it comes to 911s, at least in terms of horsepower. So I'm just going to go over a couple of the exterior design elements that kind of you can pick out so you know what sort of 911 you're looking at. Unfortunately, for some people, they can't really tell a lot of 911s apart. But for the aficionados, it's easy to kind of determine what 911 that you're looking at. And when you look at a turbo, you know you're dealing with something that's got a high price tag and high horsepower. So we'll start over here. So this car is actually jet black metallic, my favorite color. So it's got a little bit of metallic flake in it, but it's a really nice black. The interior is also standard black leather interior, and the rims are kind of two-tone, which we're going to see when we walk around. But I just want to point out a couple things in the front here. So this front end is actually specific to a 911 Turbo, and I just want to point out a couple of neat elements here. So you have your LED indicators here. I'm just going to press unlock so you can kind of see how they blink. So these not only work as driving lights, but they also blink orange when you hit your turn signal indicator. Now, just beneath those, you have these nice big air dams that kind of house an array of different heat exchangers. The car's turbocharged, and as you guys know, turbocharged cars generate a lot of heat, especially this guy. So you have maybe 3 or 4 radiators that are hidden behind this front bumper, and you can kind of see them behind these fins. One thing that's important when you have a car that can hit 205 miles an hour is aerodynamics. And that's one thing that Porsche has in spades, just based on the general shape of the 911s. But with the Turbo S and some of the other cars, other models too, but namely the Turbo S, you have active aerodynamics. And this was kind of introduced, I believe it was introduced in 991 generation, the active part. These fins that you see here can actually rotate. So when they're open like this, the car has a bit more drag, or is a little bit less aerodynamic, but the air that flows in there is able to feed those heat exchangers. Now, the car is able to monitors on its own how much cooling it needs. So if you are in different driving modes, these will tend to open or close, but if your engine's getting too hot, then they're just gonna stay open. So the car kind of does a good job of taking care of itself, but leverages these little bits of technology in order to alter the aerodynamics of the car. You can't see it now, but we're gonna get a video of it deploying, but the car actually has a plastic front lip at the bottom of the bumper here. So when you put the car into Sport Plus mode, or when you achieve certain speeds, depending on the driving environment, there's a lot of factors that come into play. You have a little deployable front spoiler that kind of folds out like this. When you do that, that adds more downforce. Whether you're on a track or in a bend or something like that, that stuff kind of always helps. In the middle here, you have your biggest heat exchanger, and in front of that, you have your radar. So this is the radar that the car relies on in order to determine the distance between you and the car in front of you and help with other driver's aids as well. You have your parking sensors that are kind of blend into your plastic bodywork too. I don't see a lot of these cars with a front plate bracket. A lot of guys just take the risk or pay the ticket for not having it, and I think it's worthwhile. This one has it. So it doesn't look bad, but I feel like it just kind of stands out. And when you have sports cars like this, to put a front plate like this on, to me, kind of disrupts the look, but hey, I get it, it's the law. The headlights on these cars are actually pretty sophisticated. So they're LED, they're pixel LEDs as well. Porsche kind of popularized the 4 dots, and with the Turbo, you get the 4 dashes. It's an LED lighting system. They're adaptive. They move up and down depending on what you're doing. They peek around corners. It's a really, really nice lighting system. One cool thing about Porsches, and it's actually in the owner's manual, is that a lot of guys sometimes they screw with their headlights in the sense that maybe they put a put a layer of tint over them to make them darker, or just put a layer of PPF. Just to let you know, if you touch these headlights in any way like that, it voids any warranty that has to do with these headlights. And I don't know how much one of these costs, but I'm gonna guess it's probably $4,000 to $6,000. Because if you get any issues with that, Porsche doesn't like when you try to alter this. And I don't even know why you would do something like that, because the coating on these headlights, it's plastic. The coating is actually quite strong and it lasts a long time. It takes years to start to turn yellow and to show a bit of its age, depending on what you're doing, of course. If you spend a lot of time on the track and you're just getting these dusted, it will age a bit sooner. But the inside, and that's how this particular 911 is equipped, the inside of the headlights are already dark. So there really is no need to touch these. I think they look fine the way they are. Just don't touch them. Let's make our way over to the side here. Now with these turbos, something that hints at the performance is the flared wheel arches. So you can see that these kind of flare out a bit more. It's nice and clean, not like the 2019 GT3 RS that we reviewed, but it just looks all nice and neat. And you have these front splitters at the bottom of the bumper that kind of make the car closer to the ground. The car does have front lift, but it's actually a pretty reasonable gap here. And you know, it's easy to get in and out of driveways and things like that. The wheels. So these wheels are center locking, they're forged, they have a machined or polished face with dark inner spokes. Every time I kind of see that, it kind of gives the wheel a bit more depth, and I think it's a really nice touch. It's a 5x2 split spoke, and when you get a Turbo S, you get standard Porsche, carbon ceramic braking system. If you get a regular 911 Turbo, there's a lot of options that you either have to pay more to get, which would almost put you close to the price bracket of a Turbo S, but on a Turbo S, you get the standard carbon ceramic braking system. It's a huge rotor. It's big, super tall and really thick, and they last a long time. It can take a lot of punishment. When I see brakes this big on a car this small, it's kind of comforting knowing that I know it's got the power to get going, but it's got brakes that are almost appear to be oversized in order to get it to stop. This is a 20-inch wheel in the front, 255 tire, and it's a 21-inch wheel in the back. And you can tell that I have maybe less than a centimeter on top and on bottom of the caliper before it touches the rim. So you can't put a rim smaller than 20 inches on this car. The tire on this one is a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. Pilot Sport 4S is probably my favorite tire. I have that tire on my M3 and it doesn't disappoint. Wear rating isn't great, but it's a sticky tire. If you ask me, nobody makes a tire better than Michelin. And when you have a Turbo S, especially something that can exceed 200 miles an hour, you need the best that you can get. Really street friendly, but really fun on a track too. I hope you have a budget for tires if you're taking this car to the track too, because with the all-wheel drive system, the amount of power that this car puts down, you'll probably go through a set of tires in one track day. Ask anyone who spent some time there. One other thing that I wanted to mention that this car is equipped with and is an option is something that's called PASM, or PASM, Porsche Active Suspension Management. So it's really just a fancy way that Porsche it's a moniker that Porsche has for their adjustable dampening. It's a pretty nice system, and the cool thing about it is that when you have PASM on your 911, they set 10 millimeters lower than a car that doesn't have than an equivalent 911 without that feature. So it's nice because the car it sits nice and low, and it should, because you need to be low if you want to go nice and fast. These Turbo S's have these really nice side skirts. They're body colored and they kind of swing out at the back here. Speaking of swinging out, you have wide wheel arch in the back, and it kind of houses this nice iconic turbo air intake here as well. You have that Porsche, I told you they used to call it the dog leg. It's a piece of paint protection film here that kind of protects this part of the rear wheel arch. You can see how much punishment it's taken over the 39,000 kilometers that's been put on this car. So it's absolutely necessary, especially on a black car, and it's less noticeable too, the darker the color is. So we come to the back. This is your rear tire. Now you have carbon ceramic brakes in the back too, obviously, and it's a 315 tire. That is a big tire to put on a car that is of this relative size. And speaking of size, this rear rotor is a lot bigger than most cars' front rotors. So everything I see on this car, and it takes a trained eye, just hints at the level of performance that this car offers you. Your window trim is all matte black. So is your air intakes here. The more black, the better for me, because you know black cars, they always sell, and to me they just look a bit more sinister. When we come around to the back of the car over here, at the sides of your bumper, you kind of have these openings that are beneath your reflectors. So you have heat exchangers that are hidden back there that are fed air from the front, and they need somewhere to escape. That's what those are for. If you ever see a 911 and 992, So a 22 and up 911, and it's got the oval exhaust pipes that usually denotes sport exhaust. Something you probably should get standard on a Turbo S, but it was an option on this car, thank God. And the exhaust tips themselves are actually in gloss black, so it really ties in with the whole car. The one thing that's not really murdered out on this car is the badging. So these letters beneath your tail lights appear to be floating. This is all like the new fonts for all the new 911s. Every year they kind of update it and kind of make that wording a little bit more sharper. With 992s, you have that one continuous light that goes across all the way from side to side. I think that's a nice touch. Beneath your license plate, you have some vents here too, okay? Because you have more cooling that takes in air on top of your engine cover and goes through and needs a place to escape. Your rear view camera, stationary, but you can hardly see it. It's kind of tucked underneath this piece of the bumper. The spoiler right now is in its lower position. This spoiler is a part of the active aerodynamic system that this car uses to manage the air depending on what you want to do. So right now it's in the low setting. It can go up and stay flat, and it can also, in its most aggressive form, it kind of tilts forward like this. And what this does is that it works in concert with the suspension in order to make sure that the back of the car sticks to the ground. The car manages it all itself, but you do have manual control over a lot of this stuff. One thing that they did away with 992 generation 911s is the traditional door handles. They're kind of semi-flush, and they just kind of present themselves when you walk up to the car, when you press unlock, and then when you get in the car and you get going, then they kind of just go back and flush. It's more aerodynamic, and it's still a traditional handle. I kind of like that. All right. Yeah, you definitely get that cockpit feel in here. Everything is black in here. All the trim is black around your shift lever, but this car is equipped with matte carbon fiber trim. So I love how linear the dash is. It doesn't look too busy, and you just have a nice piece of carbon fiber that goes across here. And you also have a piece of matte carbon fiber that kind of is on your steering wheel trim. There's this heated steering wheel as well. This is what they call a GT multi-function sports steering wheel with steering wheel heating. The car is all black, but there's a couple spots like on the top of the door cards where it's kind of stitched in a gray stitch just to kind of give it a little bit of depth. I think it really looks nice. The Bose sound system, which this car has, is standard on the Turbo S. I think you'll be perfectly fine with that sound system, but if you're a real audiophile, then the Burmester is the one to go with. I think it was about a $6 or $7 grand option. This car, when it was designed, when it was ordered in 21, the sticker was about $265 to $270, and if anybody knows anything about 911s, you know that these actually hold their value really well, especially turbos. So this car is about, I think it's about 280 grand, even though it's a 22. It's got just under 40,000 kilometers on the odometer. So it's a really good car, really reliable. It's very service friendly, and they hold their value really well. So if you want to get into a sports car that's not too daunting to drive, any 911 would do. But this one especially holds its value really well. These seats are Sport Seats Plus, so they're bolstered a bit better. The headrest is built into the seats, just like I was explaining to you on the Aston Martin DBX. They're a really good blend of a seat that's comfortable and a seat that is performance oriented, meaning it's got a lot of bolstering and things like that. It's perforated leather, so it's a bit more breathable. If you're in a black car, or if it just gets hot, when you have perforated leather, just helps your skin and your clothes breathe a little bit better rather than like a solid piece of leather. I like what they did with the 992 interior. I'm not too dazzled. It's very simplistic, and they still kept a bunch of switches and buttons. Just beneath your infotainment screen here, you have the button for your front axle. You have a button to activate your exhaust. That's my favorite button. One for your hazard lights, disable your traction control, and enable your Porsche dynamic chassis control, which is also kind of similar to works in concert with PASM, or Porsche Active Suspension Management, where it basically adjusts the dampening on your car. Now, when you change your different driving modes, which is you have a rotary knob right on your steering wheel to help you conveniently go through those different modes, these are the sort of things that change. Your throttle input, your suspension stiffness, your shift ferocity, all of these things adjust depending on what mode you're in. The steering wheel is all stitched in leather with, at 12 o'clock, they have a little strip here. Sometimes you can get this done in a different color of leather, but this is black to match, and that's okay. I like anything that's black on black on black. This car has a sunroof. Not all of them do, but this one does, and I think it's a nice touch because if you don't like the sunroof, you can just close the shade to make it a little bit cooler in here, because it does still let a bit of light in despite the fact that it's It's tinted. Your instrument cluster is really nice. Your tach is the only analog gauge this car has retained over the previous 911. So that's dead center, that doesn't move. And you have two screens on either side that display different information. You can alter what you see. It gives you information about your driving, driver's aids, time, temperature, exterior temperature, fuel, boost. You can transpose your navigation here. It's a far more intuitive system, and I like that they still kept the analog tachometer. It's probably my favorite gauge on any car. Your starter switch is right above your left knee, like most Porsches, all of them in fact. And this is, when we did our review on the 25 Targa 4 GTS, they switched it to a start-stop button. But this one, the car is completely keyless, and there's like a switch here that you just kind of turn to start the car. I think it's still cool, but I like how they switched to that with the 992.2 911s. Your infotainment screen is wide angle. Again, one thing I complained to you guys about with the other 911 is that I have to make 5 different decisions before I can even pick a radio station when I start this car. Like, I don't want to set anything up, just give me my information. This is where you can kind of screw around with a lot of the different features that the car has, like deploying your spoilers, like the one in the front and the one in the back. So I'm just going to press this now, and when you do this, that kind of puts this 911 into attack mode. You have a dedicated button for your exhaust, but you can also go through this menu and you can adjust that too. You can adjust your different driver's aids. Like some people, I think lane keeping assist is a nice feature, but some people find it distracting, especially if you're in low traction environments. Let's say you're on the highway and you just get a little bit too close to that dotted line, the car kind of interferes and it's a little bit unnerving. So most driver's aids like this I turn off just because I'm so used to driving without them. But it has saved my ass a couple times, and I've noticed with a lot of these driver assistance systems, not just the 911s, but in cars in general, when I drive a car for an extended amount of time that has it, I find that I become more reliant on that sort of stuff. When you kind of drive by comparison, the old school way, I kind of rely more on my mirrors and my situational awareness in order to determine what's going on, and not really relying on that sort of technology. But you know, it's where we're going, and not everyone is as in tune with this stuff as say you or I. But it's really a nice feature. But I'm just glad that they allow you to kind of turn it on and off. You get one cup holder in the middle here, and this cup holder is actually removable. You just kind of pull this tab, and the cup holder lifts right out. And then you could usually, there's other stuff that you can put here. There's other accessories you can get from Porsche to kind of replace this cup holder, but it's really the only one the driver gets. So if you're drinking coffee when you're driving, it's probably a good idea to keep that there. But no smoker's package in this car. You can get that, and you can kind of get that in place of the cup holder, because you know, sometimes maybe I want a cigarette. The passenger gets their cup holder right here too. Now this is cool because they kind of disguise it and they hide it in the dash. Even in my M3, which is a 2008, it's kind of similar in the sense that it kind of comes out of the dash. But you got to pay attention, because it's happened to me before where I have a passenger sitting here and they go to get out of the car and they hit whatever's in this, and sometimes it'll damage the cup holder or it'll spill the drink all over and end up screaming at them. The car has something that is synonymous with a lot of 911s or a lot of Porsches called Sport Chrono. So Sport Chrono, pretty much on a Turbo S, on a regular 911, Sport Chrono means a lot more, but it's a standard feature on a Turbo S. But what Sport Chrono is designed to do, and the giveaway for it, is the stopwatch on the dash. It also offers an additional driving mode, which is Sport Plus. And when you put it in Sport Plus, you don't necessarily have to be banging through the gears yourself. The car will kind of have its own program when it comes to that. And it is lively, okay? I used to have a Panamera that had the Sport Chrono package, and every time I put the car into Sport Plus, it's just sitting a little bit too close to redline for street driving. And if I want to have that much fun, I'd rather be kind of in charge of the gears myself. But that's what you get with Sport Chrono, standard on a 911 Turbo S. All right, take it for a drive. A lot of cars and manufacturers have like a distinctive startup sound. So, you know, especially working here, anytime somebody starts a car in the showroom, I'm like, that's the Huracan, that's the 911, that's the Vet. Let's get my seat where it's supposed to be, as low as possible. Despite having an electric seat mechanism, you can actually sit quite low. Look at that. Like, I'm 6'1", look how much room I have. That's why I like it. It's So I like these 911s. Let's adjust the steering wheel. It's nice when you have a 911 turbo, because when you look in these side mirrors, you just see those big hips that this car has, and the vent. Okay, we're ready to rock. So I'm just gonna get the oil up to temp before we start having some fun. So this would be the second generation of 911 where they incorporated an electric steering rack. And I've mentioned to you guys before that when you have an electric steering rack in some cars, it kind of disconnects you from the road. Because before with the hydraulic steering rack, it's a little bit more communicative. But what I said was, when we were reviewing the 19 GT3 RS, was that despite it being electric, it's still remarkably communicative. And even though this one is all-wheel drive, and all-wheel drive tends to kind of hurt the communication between the front wheels and the driver through the steering wheel, not in this car. I turn the steering wheel half an inch, it registers. It's almost telepathic. It's really, really good steering rack. I'm not going to demonstrate this, I just know from previous experience, but if you're not at the right engine temperature, whether it's motor oil, coolant, tranny temp, whatever, a lot of these cars, Porsches especially, will kind of cut off your fuel if you start getting too hairy before the car is ready. I've only really experienced that once. I don't have the adaptive cruise control activated. I do have a little diagram here that shows up on my left screen that is a kind of visual representation of how close a car is in front of me. So even though I'm not using it, it's still working, and it's just showing me what it's doing and what it's measuring. So like I said, gentleman's 911, because we're just puttering along right now. Car is not ostentatious at all. If you're a real Porsche nut, you know exactly what's driving by or what's coming up behind you or what's in front of you. But to the untrained eye, it's just a 911. But little do they know that this car has 641 horsepower and can go from 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. 2.6 seconds is almost the blink of an eye. 8-speed gearbox. So it's a PDK transmission. And I'll tell you right now, it is difficult, or it's not easy to transmit that power, that type of power, 590 foot-pounds of torque to all four wheels. But we have PTV, which is what I thought was Porsche television. It's Porsche torque vectoring. And no car needs it more than this, because it's probably got the most torque in order to distribute. And without properly distributing that torque, what good is all the power if you can't put it down? It's still pretty quiet in here. It's such a usable sports car. And every time I get customers who are kind of just getting their feet wet when it comes to a bona fide sports car, like let's say you're a young parent or something, and you know, you don't need to have the minivan or the SUV anymore, and you can afford to have a toy, but you don't really know what you want, and you never really had anything before. I always say 911. You don't necessarily have to blow your brains out and get a turbo or a GT3 or whatever. But it's the car is not big. Looks wise, it's not super in your face. Despite being a European car, you don't get cut eye from people who are more fond of American cars. And I think that's probably due in part to the fact, or wholly to the fact, that the 911 is just such an icon. Even if someone who's not into cars sees a 911, whether it's from 1975 or 2025, they know they're looking at a 911. It's become the poster car for Porsche, and for good reason. Okay, our oil temp is approaching 90 degrees, so I'm just gonna screw around a bit with the driving modes. When you go to Sport Plus, it activates that rear wing that I was telling you about, and it deploys that front spoiler. So with these German cars, they gave you all kinds of warnings, which is good, but it says right in my instrument cluster, it says, when I put it into Sport Plus, it says, extend spoiler, reduced ground clearance. So if you thought you had ground clearance before, it's just telling you, hey, look out, because now your front end has less of an entry angle than you're used to. I'm just gonna press M so I can kind of go through the gears myself. So in Sport Plus, everything's dialed up. My exhaust is sport exhaust is open. My suspension is in maximum stiff. My throttle is more touchy. And if I wasn't manning the gears myself, it would hold gears for me and blip the throttle and downshift for me. And it knows when the car knows when I'm in a bend. It knows when I'm in a turn. And it will make those decisions for you. And these days, these pre-programmed driving modes are actually pretty intuitive. Driving in these city streets in Oakville is really good way, or any street really, to kind of go through these different modes, mainly your suspension, because you'll drive over like a crack in the road in comfort mode, or normal mode as this car calls it, and you wouldn't really notice it, and then all of a sudden you kind of start to feel everything. But that's kind of part of it, guys. When you have a car that has firm suspension, it's obviously tailored towards performance, and it kind of keeps you more awake, and you need to be awake when you're trying to make good use of 641 horsepower. Oh boy. It's turbocharged, right? But at this time, for 992.1, which started in 2020, with the exception of the GT cars, every 911 is turbocharged, which kind of took away affected the specialness of the 911 Turbo S. So if people who grew up with 911s kind of equated all those turbo sounds like the whooshing and this and that with the turbo. Right now you can get that at half to a third of the cost, you know, but none of them pull like this. And the engine in this car is a 3.8, and it's built on the same foundation of the standard 911, which is a 3-liter. All they really did was increase the bore of the cylinders from, I think, 92 to 102, something to that effect. That's how you get the more displacement. And you kind of need that because the turbochargers on this car are far larger than they are on your standard 911. So since the turbochargers are larger, you need, it's helpful to have a bigger engine in terms of displacement, because you have more exhaust. It helps spool up. That almost accounts for the size of the turbocharger and helps it spool up sooner. That's one thing that helps these turbochargers spool up sooner. Another thing is Porsche introduced what they called variable geometry turbochargers in 997 generation, so starting in 2007. So like I explained to you guys before, the turbocharger compresses air and shoots it into the engine, and the way it compresses that air is that the exhaust gas spins a turbine which is connected to another turbine. One turbine compresses the air, the other turbine is spun by exiting exhaust gas. But you can alter the angle at which these exhaust gases hit the exhaust side of the turbocharger. So this way you can almost get it to spool faster at lower speeds. It doesn't eliminate turbo lag, but it kind of manages it, if I could. That's the best way that I could put it. Because right now, like, I'm in third gear, 2,500 RPM. If I put my foot down, see, it took a second for the car to really start to get up and go. And that's just how much time it needs. Even with all this tech in place to try to get that turbocharger spooling, there's still lag. And if you watch the review that I did on the Targa 4 GTS, the 2025, you'll see how when they integrate hybrid technology, that turbo spools instantly. So turbo lag is officially completely eliminated. Okay, got some space, let's hit it. Woo! When it comes to cars like this, and this car is a really good example of this characteristic, it just wants to keep going. Like, I didn't even hit 5th gear there. I still had 3 gears left, and this thing was still pulling like a freight train. It's insane. In order to put all this power down efficiently, and a 911 wouldn't be a 911, a Porsche wouldn't be a Porsche if it didn't handle well. And one thing that was kind of a first for 911s, especially turbos, and I think this started in 991, is the 4-wheel steering. So at low speeds, your rear wheels kind of turn in the opposing direction. One thing I can tell you, after having driven many 911s, naturally aspirated ones, I had a 13 C4. We did that 2019 GT3 RS. I find those cars, in terms of the power, it's more linear, it's more predictable. With these turbos, it's not as predictable. Doesn't mean it's less fun to drive. It's just a characteristic you need to be mindful of if you want to keep control of this thing. But these 911s, they, like, when I see them, they remind me of like a bar of soap, because they're just so aerodynamic, and I feel like they just like slip through the air. Aero is a big deal when it comes to these 911s, and they nail it in the wind tunnel with these cars. Especially the cars that are going to be designed to spend more time on a circuit, like the GT class, GT3, GT3 RS, GT2, the 911 Turbo, because when you have a top speed of 205 miles an hour, you better know what the air is doing. I really can't complain much about this car. The one cool thing is that with the generation that precedes this 911, this is 992.1. 991.2 started in 2017, and Porsche made a GT2 RS for 2018 and 2018 only, at least for Canada. And that car blew everybody away, because what they did was they took a 911 turbo, tuned it up, and they made it rear-wheel drive and gave it all the same, not the same, but very similar, very aggressive and suggestive aerodynamics. Not only that, they gave the car meth injection, which is a way that kind of cools your intake air by using water, by cooling your intake air, or it changes the way your combustion works, and you pretty much get more power. That car was 700 horsepower, all to the rear wheels. That car is, they call them Widowmaker for a reason, because the all-wheel drive system in this car really helps manage all that power and kind of keep you in control if you know how to use it. In a GT2 RS, you got to have some nerve to push that car to its limit. So when the new 911 Turbo was introduced for 2021, the horsepower wasn't quite there, 641 versus 700 in the previous GT2 RS, but the 0 to 60 times were near identical. I think this car is maybe 0.1 second behind that GT2 RS. The numbers that GT2 RS put down were very impressive and almost terrifying. So to have a regular production 911 like a Turbo S be able to put that power down and achieve similar 0 to 60 numbers and stuff like that, very impressive. So like I was explaining to you guys before, one thing that I think started in last generation, 991, was four-wheel steering. Not all the cars got it, but I believe the Turbo did, and I know that the GT3 and the GT3 RS did. So what that does, it basically makes those huge rear wheels turn in the opposing direction at low speeds. This kind of helps the car better rotate without sacrificing traction. When you're trying to put down 641 horse, it's a nice feature to have. You see it in luxury cars too, but the four-wheel steering serves a different purpose in cars like that. In this, it's all about performance. I'm just going to demonstrate the turbo lag. 2,000 RPM, second gear. Put it down. It kind of took a second. Not quite 1 second, but I was able to count. So, like I said, guys, not a terrible thing. Part and parcel. Not anymore with the way they weaponize this hybrid tech. At the time of this video, the 992.2 50th anniversary turbo was released, and it uses all the same tech that I described in the 25 Targa 4 GTS. The car has 703 brake horsepower and almost the same torque in a 911. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I can only imagine how potent that car is relative to this, because that is a huge technological update that's done in the same gen. Every 911 generation prior to 992, the difference between the 0.1 and 0.2 were significant, but not as big as it was with 992.1 and 992.2. Because like I said, the biggest change is they pretty much they did a huge revamp on the powertrain. Completely new engines with weaponized hybrid technology. No facelift or life cycle improvement was bigger than with this. That doesn't make this car any less fun, but it does mark the end of the era of turbo lag. Okay, I think we've beat on her enough. One cool feature that I'm just gonna hit once before we get back to the dealership is on the drive mode selector on the steering wheel, there's a button you press that gives you a little bit of boost for 20 seconds. It just makes the car a bit more responsive for a short amount of time and gives you kind of like a quick boost. It's kind of like a NOS button, sort of. Okay, now that we're coming back to the dealership, since I'm in Sport Plus, Car's lower, front axle lift is down. I'm gonna press the front axle lift to lift up the front end. Now the car is asking me, it says, it says save smart lift. Smart lift means that the car is noting where I am geographically using GPS, and it sees that I hit that the front axle lift button. So if I press save right now on the infotainment, you can't see it now, it will program it into the GPS that anytime I come here, anytime I enter this driveway or enter this neighborhood, it'll activate the front lift and lift it up without me having to go and do it. It's pretty neat and makes it a lot easier for you. A lot of practicality. Still got the 2 back seats. You can put the back seats down to kind of create a little bit of a shelf, and you could definitely fit, probably, if you really wanted to, I think you could fit 2 sets of golf clubs, and you could definitely fit a beer cooler in your frunk if you're that type of person. That's all, folks. So you can see by how subtly styled this is why I call it a gentleman's 911, because it's probably one of the fastest cars they make without shouting it at you like a GT3 RS. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.